You ever wonder how a tiny dimpled golf ball can fly so incredibly far? Or how a massive jetliner weighing hundreds of thousands of pounds can be so efficient? Well, what if I told you the answer to both is exactly the same? It's an invisible force, a secret that nature figured out a long, long time ago, and one that we are only now truly learning to master.
It all kicks off with a question that seems, pretty simple on the surface, but the answer is anything but. Why do golf balls have dimples? Your first thought is probably that a smooth surface would be better, right? Less resistance, less drag, but in the wild world of aerodynamics, what seems logical isn't always true.
And here's where things get really interesting. What could that little white ball possibly have in common with a technological marvel like the Boeing 787 Dreamliner? Well, it turns out they both share a deep, fundamental understanding of how to manipulate the very air around them.
So, let's pull back the curtain and unlock the secret of the dimple. Because it's not actually about the dents themselves. No, it's about the absolutely incredible effect they have on the air as it flows over the ball. The real key here is learning to control this invisible skin of air that clings to any object that's moving. If you can master this skin, you unlock huge gains in efficiency. It's a trick that everything, from a soaring eagle to a swimming dolphin, and yep, even a jumbo jet, has had to learn. To really get this, we need to understand that this skin of air can behave in two completely different ways. You can think of it as a tale of two flows. One is smooth and orderly, and the other is chaotic and full of energy.
All right, so let's give this invisible skin its proper scientific name. It's called the boundary layer. It's just a razor-thin layer of air, or water, or any fluid that's stuck right to the surface of an object. But how that thin layer behaves, well, that can be the difference between flying and falling.
And here's the villain of our story, something called flow separation. This is what happens when that boundary layer just gives up. It detaches from the surface, leaving behind this big, messy, low-pressure wake. It's like an invisible parachute suddenly opening behind you, creating a huge anchor of drag that just kills your speed and efficiency.
Now this is where it gets really, really cool. That boundary layer can be in one of two states. On one side, you've got laminar flow. It's beautiful, smooth, clean, orderly layers of air, and it has very low friction. Sounds perfect, right? Well, its big weakness is that it's fragile. It gives up and separates from a surface really easily. On the other side, you've got turbulent flow. It's messy, chaotic, full of swirling eddies, and it creates more surface friction. But, and this is the absolute game changer, it is packed with energy. It clings to the surface for dear life and fights off separation. So this is the big trade-off every engineer faces. Do you want the low friction of laminar flow, or do you want the incredible separation resistance of turbulent flow?
So, while engineers were still wrestling with this problem, you know who already had it all figured out? Nature. The animal kingdom is just a masterclass in controlling the boundary layer.
Just look at birds. They have this tiny little feather on the front of their wing called an alula. At low speeds, it pops up, keeps the airflow attached, and prevents a stall. It's a natural high-lift device. Or bats and insects. The very texture of their wings creates what's called favorable roughening, which is just a clever way of manipulating the boundary layer. But maybe the most mind-blowing example comes from the ocean. For years, scientists were completely stumped by something they called Gray's paradox. Dolphins were just way too fast for the amount of muscle they had. It didn't make any sense. And then a zoologist named Sir James Gray suggested something that sounded totally backwards. What if dolphins were intentionally creating a turbulent boundary layer? Yeah, it adds a tiny bit of skin friction, but it massively reduces their overall drag by keeping the water flow attached to their bodies all the way down. It was the perfect counterintuitive solution.
And that is the secret of the golf ball. The dimples are there for one reason: to trip the smooth, fragile laminar flow into a tough, energetic, turbulent one. That turbulent layer then clings to the back of the ball, which shrinks the wake, slashes the drag, and lets the ball just soar through the air. It's the same exact reason a baseball or a cricket ball has stitches. And when a pitcher throws a curveball, they're using spin to manipulate precisely where that flow separates, creating the force that makes the ball break.
So, if we've known this for over 100 years, putting it on an airplane should be simple, right? Well, what works on a little ball turns out to be a massive challenge on a giant wing.
Back in the 1930s, engineers went all in on laminar flow wings for planes like the legendary P-51 Mustang. And in a clean wind tunnel, they worked like a dream. But in the real world, a single bug splatter, a tiny dent from a mechanic's tool, and poof, that fragile laminar flow was gone, and so were all the benefits.
To get around this, engineers came up with a whole series of clever solutions. They started with what's called natural laminar flow, or NLF, which is all about shaping the wings so perfectly that the air just wants to stay attached. When that wasn't enough, they got more aggressive with laminar flow control, or LFC. This is where they literally use suction through thousands of tiny holes in the wing to physically hold the boundary layer in place. And today, the cutting edge is hybrid laminar flow control, HLFC, which smartly combines both methods.
And all of this incredible engineering has paid off big time. Japan's Shinmeiwa US-2 seaplane uses boundary layer control to pull off amazing low-speed maneuvers, letting it land in really rough seas. And that brings us right back to the Dreamliner. By using hybrid laminar flow control on its tail, the 787 reduces drag just enough to save millions of gallons of fuel over its lifetime. That makes air travel way more efficient for all of us.
So it's really been this amazing journey, one that started with just looking at a golf ball, led us to decoding one of nature's most elegant secrets, and then turned all of that into some of our most advanced technology.
I mean, when you connect all the dots, it's kind of breathtaking. The dimple on a golf ball, the skin of a dolphin, the feather on a bird's wing, and the tail of a modern jetliner, they're all telling the same story. It's a universal principle. If you can learn to finesse an invisible force, you can learn to move through the physical world with so much less effort and with so much more grace.
We've moved beyond just pushing our way through the air. Now we're learning to intelligently dance with it. We are learning to whisper to the wind, and it's listening. So the only real question left is, where is this newfound conversation going to take us next?